You know, and we get so wrapped up, I don't want to belabor this point too much, but we think tragedies are always bad. We think, oh, I failed this test, or I should have done better on this test, and now I have to switch majors because I can't survive in this major. And we end up in something else that turns out to be far better for us than, say, that major, or that relationship, or that drive down the road, or whatever. I mean, we could really extend this, and we actually play with this idea in Mind, Body, Wellness, that you never know for sure. But if things have to be a certain way, we're doomed. Okay? All right. Any other thoughts about anger? Question. If I have somebody coming into my house who's trying to hurt my family, oh man, I want to have as much anger as possible so that I generate that emotion that gives me strength and power to take my Louisville Slugger and beat the tar out of him so he doesn't hurt my family. The thing about that is those times are so infrequent. The times when anger really comes in is a useful emotion is very, very, very rare, less than 1% of the time. And I think there are occasions when being angry. The other thing I think sometimes is if we feel like there's an important change that needs to be made, maybe a social change or some kind of something's just not going right and people are getting hurt. Sometimes that emotion of anger, this should not be happening this way, moves us to act to make changes to laws or make changes to rules or make changes to common behaviors. I think that's a different anger than the road rage, where it's just right now, right? But I think there's a little bit of, when we get angry on those rare occasions, it's motivational. But it's very, very rare, I think. Well, if you go to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who talked about the grieving process, she said there were 5 stages that people go through whenever they lose something that means a lot to them. Do any of you remember this in your psychology classes? Please tell me they still are talking about Kubler-Ross. Nobody? Who's our you're our psychology person. Do you talk about Kubler-Ross at all? The 5 stages of grieving. Do you remember what they are? Denial. Anger's next. Good. Starts with B. Bargaining. Who said that? Bargaining. So Kubler-Ross, she worked with people, as you're thinking about it, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross worked with people who were going through, their family members had died. She worked a lot around people who were dying or had died, and the family members who survived the one who died. And she found that there was a natural process. She said this is a natural thing that people go through when they've lost, and it could be just your watch or your phone, but mostly it was with people who they loved, how she discovered this. And they would go through these 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining. Do you remember the 4th one starts with a D? The one that lasts the longest. That's the first one. Like, no, this shouldn't have happened. Go through this in your own self. Think about, you just lost your phone, and you know you're not going to find it. Okay, that's close to death of a loved one for some of us. So the first thought you're going to have, no, this couldn't have happened. And then anger, usually self-anger in that case. How could I have done that? Bargaining, what would that sound like? There's a possible, or we go, God, angels, whoever's in charge of finding cell phones, I promise I'll, in order to find my phone. Do you know what I mean? Or please bring this person back, I'll live a good life, or whatever. Bargaining. Denial, anger, bargaining, and then the recognition that it's not coming back. What sets in? Depression sets in. Depression. Ugh, crap. And that's what usually lasts the longest when people, like with my brother who died, it was hard for members of our family. I mean, it took 6 months for some of us to really be at the 5th stage, which was acceptance, right? Where you be okay with, yeah, I don't have this phone anymore. I don't have this wedding ring, or I don't have this person in my life anymore. And she said, and plenty of psychologists would agree, when you're going through that process, you don't hurry the state. They're natural. That there is a natural, when it's a loss, it's a natural thing to go through those stages. It's not a, she felt like it was a common trait of man whenever there's a loss.